This is Earl Nightingale, speaking to you from a quiet, wood-paneled studio, where the truths of life glow like embers in a hearth, casting light into the shadows of a world half asleep. Calling to those who sit alone in the stillness, their hearts stirring with a potential they have only begun to glimpse. Before we embark on this journey, a journey that may unveil the echoes that shape your days, that may kindle a fire in the silence of your soul, that may guide you to a life transformed by the power of your own thoughts, I extend a heartfelt invitation to join our fellowship of awakeners. These are the souls who dare to question the patterns they've inherited, who burn with the quiet fire of awareness, who refuse to live as shadows of someone else's design. If this message stirs your heart, if it lights a candle in the quiet of your mind, I urge you to share it by subscribing to this program. Write to us, join our great conversation, and let us know you stand with us by leaving your mark of approval. Your voice strengthens this circle, and together we can forge a brotherhood of those who see the truth, who speak the truth, who live the truth. Now, settle in, for we speak of a truth so profound, so radiant, it has been whispered through the ages, feared by those who would keep you bound, yet waiting for you to claim it. Think this way, my friends, and watch everything change, not by force, nor by chance, but by the quiet, unshakable power of your mind. This is the seed that grows into a garden, the fire that lights the way, the river that carries you to freedom. Will you hear it? Will you heed it? Will you become it? The choice is yours, and the moment is now. There is a truth, my friends, so ancient it seems etched into the stones of forgotten valleys, so simple it rings like a single chime in the silence, yet so profound it stirs the soul like a storm breaking over the horizon. Most men do not think their own thoughts, but live as echoes of echoes, their minds filled not with ideas, but with the ghosts of ideas, patterns passed down like worn-out cloaks, heavy with the dust of centuries, worn without question, carried without choice. Their lives are not their own, for their thoughts are not their own, shaped by voices they never challenged, bound by beliefs they never sowed, guided by paths they never carved. This truth began as a whisper, faint and fleeting, passed from philosopher to sailor in the quiet of starlit night, from poet to merchant in the soft glow of a dawn market, from sage to farmer in the stillness of a field at dusk, until it grew, swelling like a tide, resounding like thunder, awakening those who dared to listen, freeing them from the chains of a mind unexamined. Picture a village, its streets cloaked in the haze of twilight, its people moving in step with the toll of a distant bell, their days measured by tasks they did not choose, their dreams dimmed by thoughts they did not plant. Into this village comes a wanderer, his eyes alight with a fire that pierces the fog, his voice carrying a message that stirs the air like a wind before a storm. He speaks of a mind, not as a follower, but as a creator, a mind enslaved not by iron, but by echoes, a mind that can be freed by a single act of courage, to think. The villagers pause, their hearts quickening, their eyes lifting from the ground to the stars, but the keepers of order grow uneasy. These words, they declare, are too bold, too unsettling, too bright. They threaten the rhythm of the village, the certainty of its harvest, the silence of its routine. And so, they hush the wanderer. They urge the people to forget his words, to return to their plows, their looms, their ledgers, to let the bell dictate their lives, to let the fog of echoes settle over their souls. But truth, my friends, is not so easily silenced. It is like a seed that, once planted, cannot be uprooted, like a fire that, once kindled, cannot be quenched, like a river that, once loosed, cannot be dammed, like a star that, once risen, cannot be veiled. The wanderer's words spread, whispered in the glow of hearths, shared in the quiet of fields, carried on the winds that sweep across oceans and plains, etched into the hearts of those who dare to listen. They reach the farmer, his hands deep in the earth, his heart stirred by the possibility of planting not just crops, but thoughts that could reshape his life, that could break the chains of sameness. They reach the seamstress, her needle flashing in the candlelight, her soul awakened to the vision of weaving not just garments, but a destiny of her own. They reach the merchant, his shop a hub of trade, his heart stirred by the dream of building not just profit, but a legacy that endures. They reach the poet, her pen poised above a blank page, her mind ignited by the call to write not just verses, but truths that awaken the world. They reach the sailor, his ship tethered to the harbor, his heart stirred by the possibility of steering not just seas, but his own course. They reach the clerk, his desk piled with ledgers, his soul awakened to the vision of shaping not just numbers, but a life of meaning. These words, once a whisper, became thunder, a resounding call that pierced the fog of conformity, that shattered the ghosts of inherited patterns, that lit a fire in the souls of those who heard them. I shared a fragment of this truth years ago in a message called The Strangest Secret, when I said, "We become what we think about most of the time, and that's the strangest secret." These words, so simple yet so profound, are the spark that ignites the fire of awareness, the seed that grows into a garden of freedom, the thunder that can awaken you, if you will hear them, if you will speak them, if you will live them. Do you hear that whisper in the quiet of your heart? Listener, do you feel its gentle nudge, its persistent call, its promise of change? Will you let it pass like a breeze through the trees? Or will you let it become thunder, shaking the foundations of your life, lighting a fire that no darkness can extinguish? The awakening begins not with effort, my friends, nor with ambition, nor with the noise of the world, but with a forgotten seed, the seed of awareness, planted deep within your soul at birth, waiting to be watered with courage, nourished with truth, lit with faith, tended with purpose. This seed is the moment you realize you have been living by someone else's script, reciting thoughts you did not choose, following a path you did not draw. It is the spark that lights the fire of change, the key that unlocks the door to a life of your own design, the root that grows into a garden of freedom. Yet, how forgotten, how neglected, how buried deep this seed lies. Beneath the weight of routine, it waits, smothered by the fog of habit, dimmed by the fear of questioning, hidden by a blindfold worn so long it feels like skin. Picture a man, his days spent in a quiet village, his hands busy with tasks he does not question, his heart heavy with a longing he cannot name. He believes his thoughts are his own, yet they are echoes of schoolmasters who taught him to obey, of voices that told him to stay small, of hands that placed a blindfold over his eyes, so familiar he mistook it for his own flesh. He lives his life, never realizing he stands behind a door that was never locked, never seeing that the key lies in the questions he fears to ask, never planting the seed that could set him free. The seed of awareness is the courage to see the script you've been handed, to pause in the rhythm of your days, to ask, whose thoughts are these? Whose life am I living? What might I become if I chose differently? It is not about gold, nor glory, nor the applause of the world, but about dominion over your own mind, about writing your own story, about planting a garden where once there were weeds. Picture the seamstress, her fingers swift with the needle, her dreams buried beneath the weight of duty, believing her work must be humble, never questioning the blindfold of routine, never seeing the door that was never locked. She stitches without vision, and wonders why her garments lack beauty, why her heart aches for more, why her life feels like a cage she cannot name. Picture the clerk, his desk a sea of ledgers, his spirit restless, believing his value must be measured by others, never questioning the echoes that bind him, never seeing the rusted key hidden in his own doubts. He toils without purpose, and wonders why his days feel hollow, why his soul remains a spark unlit, why his life feels like a field unplanted. Picture the farmer, his hands deep in the earth, his heart heavy with the weight of inherited patterns, believing his harvest must follow the ways of his fathers, never questioning the blindfold of tradition, never seeing the open door of his own will. He plows without passion, and wonders why his fields yield little, why his soul remains barren, why his life feels like a river uncharted. The seed of awareness is within you, my friends, not in the world beyond. It is the courage to see the blindfold, the will to remove it, the faith to ask the questions that unlock the door, the purpose to plant the garden of your mind. Yet how forgotten this seed remains, buried beneath the dust of a life unexamined, smothered by the voices that tell you to conform, to repeat, to drift. The world would have you believe that awareness is dangerous, that to question is folly, that to awaken is to risk the comfort of sleep. But I tell you now, the wise know this truth. To live without awareness is to live in a cage, to walk with a blindfold, to drift in a fog you did not choose, to leave the seed of your soul unplanted. Picture the poet, her chamber lit by a single candle, her heart alive with verses unvoiced, who does not seek beauty in the applause of others, but in the quiet of her own questions, planting seeds of awareness that grow into lines that awaken the world. Picture the sailor, his ship tethered to the harbor, his heart yearning for uncharted seas, who does not seek freedom in distant ports, but in the courage to steer his own course, planting seeds of awareness that guide him to new horizons. Picture the merchant, his shop a bridge between nations, who does not seek wealth in the gold of others, but in the harmony of his own thoughts, planting seeds of awareness that bloom into a legacy of peace. The seed is in the seamstress's will to weave her dreams, in the clerk's courage to shape his purpose, in the farmer's faith to tend his own soil, in your power to awaken, to choose, to live. This seed is the spark that begins the journey, the moment you pause to ask, what if my thoughts could change my life? What if I could write a new script? What if I could plant a garden where once there were weeds? It is the realization that the door was never locked, that the blindfold can be removed, that the key lies in your own hands. Do you feel that seed within you, listener? Do you sense its quiet presence, its gentle pulse, its promise of change? Will you nurture it, water it with courage, light it with truth, or will you let it lie dormant, buried beneath the weight of echoes? This truth is not new, my friends, nor is it hidden. It is as old as the mountains, as timeless as the tides, as eternal as the stars that guide the sailor's way, as enduring as the fire that burns in the forge of the heart, as steadfast as the roots that anchor a garden, as boundless as the river that seeks the sea. The wise of every age knew it, lived it, built their lives upon it, leaving legacies that stand like the pillars of ancient temples, like the verses of poets, like the fields that fed nations. The Stoics of Greece, men like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, knew that thought shapes destiny, that as a man thinketh, so is he, that the mind is not a follower, but a creator. They knew that most men live as echoes, their thoughts shaped by others, their lives bound by patterns they never questioned. Their wisdom was not mere words. It was a fire that burned through centuries, a constellation that guided souls through the fog of conformity, a garden that bloomed through time. The blacksmiths of old, their hands skilled in the quiet trade of iron, knew that their creations were not mere tools, but thoughts forged into form, thoughts that shaped lives, thoughts that broke the chains of repetition. They thought not just of labor, but of mastery, and their works became a testament to the power of belief, a fire that burned through generations. The sailors, their ships braving the black waters of unknown seas, knew that their course was not merely a path through water, but a journey of the mind, a steering by inner stars, a choice to think beyond the harbor. They thought not just of ports, but of destinies, and their voyages became a river, a testament to the power of thought, a fire that burned through the ages. Consider the farmer, his fields a canvas of life, his hands deep in the soil, who knew that his harvest was not merely crops, but thoughts, thoughts tended with care, thoughts that grew into abundance, thoughts that fed the world. He thought not just of seasons, but of eternity, and his fields became a garden, a fire that burned through time, a river that flowed to the sea. Picture the poet, her chamber lit by candlelight, her heart alive with truths unvoiced, who knew that her verses were not mere words, but seeds, seeds that could awaken the soul, that could light a fire in the hearts of those who read them, that could forge a legacy eternal. She thought not just of writing, but of eternity, and her lines became a constellation, a map for souls lost in the fog of echoes. Picture the merchant, his shop a bridge between nations, his heart alive with a vision of harmony. He knew that his trade was not merely goods, but belief, that each bargain he struck was a thought, that each market he built was a triumph over conformity, a seed planted in the garden of his soul. The wise were not different from you, my friends. They were simply awake, their minds alive with thoughts of what could be, their hearts bold with the fire of purpose, their hands forging a life of meaning. While others let weeds take over the garden of their beliefs, the wise kept tending, kept planting, kept harvesting. They spoke the truth, they lived the truth, they sowed the seeds, they kindled the fires, they steered by their own stars, and they reaped the riches of a life well lived. As I said in The Strangest Secret, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The wise knew this, my friends. They knew that their thoughts were the hammer, the helm, the seed, the fire, the lever that could lift them from repetition to freedom, from conformity to creation, from the fog of echoes to the light of purpose. Do you sense the echo of their wisdom in your own heart, listener? Do you feel the call to tend the garden of your own mind, to steer by your own stars, to forge your own path? The wise were not born with special gifts. They simply chose to think, to question, to awaken. They chose to plant seeds where others saw barren soil, to light fires where others saw only darkness, to steer by stars where others saw only fog. They knew that thought is not a shadow, but a force, not a follower, but a leader, not a cage, but a key. They knew that to think is to create, to dream is to build, to envision is to become, to sow is to reap, to steer is to triumph. This truth was not reserved for the mighty, nor hidden from the humble. It was known to the seamstress who thought of beauty in crafted garments that clothed the heart with hope, forging a fire that burned through time. It was known to the clerk who thought of purpose and shaped a life beyond his ledgers, sowing a seed that bloomed for generations. It was known to the farmer who thought of abundance and worked to make it real, planting a garden that fed his village. It was known to the poet who thought of truth and spoke it to the world, lighting a fire that burned through centuries. Will you join them, listener? Will you think as they thought, dream as they dreamed, act as they acted, sow as they sowed, steer as they steered? If this message stirs your soul, join our fellowship. Write to us, share your thoughts, and let us know you're with us by leaving your mark of approval. Let us stand together as those who know the truth, as those who live the freedom, as those who forge the fire. Why, then, do so few awaken to this truth, while so many remain asleep, not creating but reciting, not steering but drifting, not forging their own destinies, but wandering in the fog of a life unchosen? The answer lies in the quiet sameness of the world, the systems that cradle men to sleep, the low hum of obedience that lulls the soul, the comfort of repetition that dims the fire of awareness. Picture a vast field, shrouded in twilight, where men and women move like a flock, their eyes open but their souls asleep, circling the same worn paths, their thoughts not their own but recited, their words not spoken but echoed, their hearts dim with a longing they cannot name, their fires unlit, their gardens unplanted. This is the sleep of the many, my friends, a sleep induced by the systems that surround us, by the routine that dulls the mind, by the obedience that binds the heart, by the repetition that buries the soul. The schoolhouse, with its dusty books and rigid rows, teaches you to recite, to obey, to conform, not to question, not to dream, not to light the fire in your soul. It fills your mind with the ghosts of ideas, with the blindfold of habit, with the chains of sameness, leaving your own garden barren, your own fire unlit. The workshops and fields, with their endless tasks and silent toil, demand your time, not your heart, rewarding those who drift without question, chaining your spirit to the hum of routine, locking your soul in a prison of repetition, a garden where no dreams grow. The village, with its quiet hearths and familiar paths, expects you to stay small, to recite the lives of those before you, to let your dreams fade like stars at dawn, to let your fire dim, to let your garden wither. Consider the clerk, taught to tally numbers without vision, to follow the ledgers of others, to avoid the risks of dreaming, to keep his fire hidden. The village depends on his records, and so he is told to stay predictable, to silence his questions, to let his garden grow weeds, to leave his fire unlit. He toils without passion and drifts through life, his heart heavy with unspoken longing, his mind dulled by the clock's tick, his soul a spark unlit, a seed unplanted. Consider the seamstress, urged to sew only what is needed, simple garments for the market, never the works of beauty that burn in her heart, never questioning the echoes that bind her. The village needs her stitches, and so she is kept in place, her needle moving in rhythm with routine, her creations fading like the thread she uses, her spirit confined to the gray silence of duty, her fire extinguished, her garden barren. Consider the farmer, taught to plow the same fields as his fathers, to sow the same seeds, to suppress his visions of abundance, to let his fire smolder. The village needs his harvest, and so he is bound, his plow moving in patterns not his own, his heart a river uncharted, his life a garden unplanted. These systems, my friends, are like a soft fog, gentle yet unyielding, keeping you safe from risk, but also from freedom, keeping you asleep while your dreams fade, while your fire dies, while your garden remains barren, your river uncharted. They lull you with the promise of comfort, of ease, of certainty, but comfort is the enemy of awareness, the thief of purpose, the chain that binds your soul to a life of recitation. These systems fear the awakened mind, my friends, for a man or woman who awakens is a force unstoppable, a flame unquenchable, a tide uncontainable, a star undeniable, a river unyielding, a garden unbreakable. They fear a clerk who questions his ledgers, who might shape a life of purpose that inspires others to awaken, who might kindle a fire that spreads. They fear a seamstress who dreams of beauty, who might craft garments that clothe the soul with hope, who might forge a fire that burns through time. They fear a farmer who dreams of abundance, who might plant a garden that feeds not just his village but his soul, who might light a fire that endures. An awakened man or woman questions the schoolhouse, challenges the workshops, rewrites the village's rules, lights a fire that spreads, plants a garden that blooms. This is why most remain asleep, my friends, because waking hurts. It is painful to face the truth, to see the blindfold, to feel the chains, to hear the echoes of a programmed mind, to step into the unknown, to plant a seed in untested soil, to forge a new path, to kindle a new fire. The truth can burn before it heals, can wound before it frees, can blind before it lights. The world would have you believe that sleep is safety, that recitation is peace, that repetition is home. But I tell you, as I said in Lead the Field, most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. Sleep is a cage, my friends, a fog where your dreams go to die, a chain that binds your soul, a garden that remains barren, a fire that remains unlit, a river that never finds its sea. Will you remain asleep, listener, or will you awaken? Will you let the fog lull you to sleep, or will you face the burn of truth, planting your garden, lighting your fire, steering by your own stars? And now, my friends, we come to the heart of this truth, the seed that awakens, the key that unlocks, the fire that burns away the fog, the helm that steers you from the cage of echoes to the freedom of your own mind. It is this: you become what you think about most of the time. Speak these words, my friends, and let them take root in your soul. Write them down, as you would a sacred vow, in the quiet of your chamber, by the light of a candle, on a page that will become the blueprint of your life. Repeat them each dawn, each dusk, until they echo in your mind like the chime of a bell, until they guide your thoughts like a constellation, until they light your path like a fire, until they forge your destiny like a hammer on an anvil. These are not mere words, my friends. They are a law, a principle, a force as sure as gravity, as constant as the sunrise, as eternal as the tides, as unyielding as the forge, as radiant as the star, as enduring as the garden, as boundless as the river. They are the key to reprogramming your mind, to reclaiming your soul, to planting the seeds of change, to forging a life that is yours. Plant these words in the fertile soil of your mind. Water them with faith. Nurture them with action. Light them with courage. Forge them with purpose. And watch as your life transforms into a garden of majesty, a fortress of freedom, a river of creation, a fire that no darkness can extinguish. Picture the seamstress, her shop a humble room, her hands swift with the needle, her days once a cycle of routine, her heart once heavy with the weight of echoes. She hears this truth, perhaps from a broadcast like this, and she writes it down. You become what you think about most of the time. It stirs her, like a wind lifting a seed, like a spark in dry tinder. She begins to think, not of simple garments, but of beauty, of a craft that clothes the soul with hope, of a life that shines. Each day she repeats the words, each stitch she makes with care, each moment she invests in her vision, and in time, her shop becomes a beacon, her garments a testament to grace, her name a whisper in every home, her life a garden that blooms with majesty, a fire kindled by the power of her thoughts. Picture the clerk, his desk piled with ledgers, his heart once dim with the shadow of repetition, his days once a blur of numbers. He hears these words from a kind mentor, and they resonate, like the toll of a bell, like starlight breaking through the fog. He writes them down, he repeats them, and begins to think, not of ledgers, but of purpose, of a life beyond the desk, of a legacy that endures. Each task he undertakes, each plan he shapes, becomes a step toward greatness, and his desk becomes a sanctuary, his work a fire that burns through time, his life a forge that no echo can bind. Picture the farmer, his fields once barren, his hands once heavy with the weight of tradition, his heart once quiet with unvoiced dreams. He hears these words from a fellow villager, and they ignite him, like a hammer striking an anvil, like a tide turning. He writes them down, he repeats them, and begins to think, not of limitation, but of abundance, of a garden that feeds not just his village, but his soul. His fields become a testament, his harvest a triumph, his life a garden that blooms with richness, a fire kindled by the power of his thoughts. Picture the poet, her pen still, her dreams once buried beneath the weight of others' voices, her heart once a quiet chamber of longing. She hears these words by a fireside, and they awaken her, like a spark in dry grass, like a river breaking through stone. She writes them down, she repeats them, and begins to think, not of pleasing the crowd, but of truth, of verses that awaken, of a legacy that shines. Her lines become a beacon, her life a garden that blooms for centuries, her soul a fire that no darkness can quench. Picture the sailor, his ship once tethered, his heart once heavy with the weight of uncharted dreams. He hears these words from a fellow mariner, and they stir him, like a star guiding his course, like a flame lighting his path. He writes them down, he repeats them, and begins to think, not of safe harbors, but of uncharted seas, of courage that charts new worlds, of a legacy that guides others. His voyages become a testament, his life a constellation, his legacy a fire that no storm can extinguish. Picture the merchant, his shop once a place of routine, his heart once restless with the pursuit of survival. He hears these words from a passing trader, and they ignite him, like a tide turning, like a spark in the night. He writes them down, he repeats them, and begins to think, not of profit, but of harmony, of trade that unites hearts, of a legacy that brings peace. His markets become a bridge, his life a river of purpose, his legacy a fire that burns through time. These stories, my friends, are the lives of those who heard these words, who spoke them, who lived them, who sowed them, who forged them. They are the men and women who awoke, who broke free from the thought cages, who built lives of quiet majesty by thinking differently, who planted the garden, who kindled the fire, who steer by their own stars. Speak these words, my friends, and let them be your guide. Let them be the helm that steers your thoughts, for your thoughts are your freedom. Your thoughts sow your garden. Your thoughts kindle your fire. Your thoughts forge your destiny. Your thoughts guide your river to the sea. And now, my friend, we come to you, you who listen in the dark, in the quiet of your room, late at night, your heart heavy but alive with wonder, a solitary soul sitting in the stillness, half awake to the potential that burns within you, poised at the edge of a new dawn, ready to choose the life you will live, the legacy you will forge, the fire you will kindle. I speak to you now, as if this were my final message, as if these were the last words I might ever share, as if you stood in the silence of eternity, ready to step into the destiny that awaits. You are not a shadow, not a cog, not a seed doomed to drift, not a soul destined to recite the echoes of others, not a life condemned to repeat. You are a creator, a dreamer, a seamstress, a poet, a clerk, a farmer, a sailor, a merchant, a force with the power to forge your destiny, to plant your garden, to kindle your fire, to steer your ship, to write your truth, to follow your river to the stars. The truth you have heard tonight is yours to speak, to live, to sow, to forge, to make in a thunder, a flame that burns through darkness, a garden that blooms through storms, a river that flows to eternity, a fire that no shadow can dim. Do not let this truth slip away, my friend, like a whisper lost in the night, like a spark that fades in gloom, like a tide that ebbs, like a seed unplanted, like a fire unlit, like a river that never finds its sea. Speak it now, with courage, with faith, with the fire of your soul, with the light of your truth, with the strength of your will. with the power of your purpose, with the glow of your dreams. Plant the seed of your vision, kindle the forge of your mind, steer the ship of your thoughts, forge the path of your destiny, write the truth of your heart, follow the river of your soul, and let the world marvel at what you become. Your life is a forge, not a cage, a river, not a chain, a fire, not a flicker, a garden, not a weed, a constellation, not a shadow. Will you strike the spark tonight? Will you plant the seed now? Will you steer your course? This is Earl Nightingale, speaking to you not with farewell, but with a new beginning, a call to awaken, a new life to live, a garden to plant, a fire to kindle, a river to sail. If this message has stirred your soul, join our fellowship. Write to us, share your thoughts, and let us know you're with us by leaving your mark. Together, let us speak the truth that breaks the chains of echoes. Let us live the freedom that awakens the soul. Let us sow the seeds that grow the garden. Let us kindle the fires that light the path. Let us follow the rivers that lead to the stars. The choice is yours, my friend, and the moment is now. You need not wait for the world to change, only for your thoughts to rise like dawn.